What's good, everybody? Happy holidays. My name is Alckemy. Today we are going to be taking a look at a very simple shaker, and we're going to be using the new Slew limiter. I wanted to do this video even though I just released a drums masterclass because the shakers are not included in that. They were planned for this video, and I wanted to give you some kind of insight or idea about what you can expect from the course itself, which is available either as it's available for the ARCANUM members. It's also available on my website for download if you'd rather buy it that way. So one cool thing that I want to talk about before we get into that is the Slew limiter. And before we even do anything like that, I'm just going to show you what I made for this demonstration. So if all that sounds cool, stick around for the video. I'm going to cover this pretty quickly, but yeah, so the Slew limiter is kind of difficult to explain, but you want to think about it as not necessarily a typical limiter. It's actually a modulator that gives a specific time frame of which something can go from 0 to 100. So you can see that there's an attack and decay, and what you do is you modulate something into it, kind of like an LFO or so. And if the attack is too long, if the decay is too long, likewise, you'll see that it will never reach 100% or barely get to 0. And so by doing this limiter in this way, it gives you a more natural sense of, something like shakers. So if you also want to kind of variate maybe an LFO to where the LFO is always within the same time frame of, like, say, the shape, but you wanted to control the depth of the LFO, I think that the Slew limiter is a great tool for that. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but you just kind of have to get in there and go and play with it, and you'll see what I mean. But for shakers and stuff in particular, it's always following this rhythm here. But you can hear that it doesn't always just sound the same in this way. It sounds like it's a little bit louder at certain times, sounds like it's a little bit more quiet at certain times, and building off of that, that's kind of the function of what we're using here. So there's more to this patch, but let's go ahead and start from the very beginning. There is a noise generator here, and it's being limited, or I guess being modulated by the Slew limiter. The Slew limiter is attached to the LFO. You could just totally ditch this and just go for the LFO, but again, with this, it gives it a little bit more humanization. And so whenever you use this, I like to do it on the level. That way it sounds like it's got moments of silence. Now, the slope over here is one of my favorite things about Faceplant, because if it's right in the middle, it's pink noise. If you turn it all the way to the left, it'll be brighter because it will turn into white noise. And then if you turn to the right, it'll become brown noise. And so that, and adding stereo, means that this noise generator thing is actually pretty versatile. So with that, I've just got a bandpass. It's not really doing anything. This is kind of like our base starting point. And I'd argue that if this is as much as you could take, like, let's say for like information overload, then you can actually use this already. But what I like to do is add more texture to it. So this is actually a reverse engineered trick. If you've seen the classic neuro bass, that's a sine wave with white noise over it, kind of like the, then you'll get something like that. So actually, let's just take a listen to what that sounds like. It's very quiet, but even still, this is something that we use in this particular genre a lot anyways. And you can actually kind of do the opposite, to where you pull out the low end and just use the texture that's on top. And it's also cool because this will tune it to the key of your song if you play like the correct note. But with that, we kind of just have a small little texture here that together with this adds a little bit of interesting movement. So likewise, in that fashion, we're also using that Slew limiter again on this bandpass here, and that's what's giving it a little bit more of a dramatic shake. So it's kind of nice because, again, it's kind of just building in small little increments about like making something that's more complex. You always want to add a limiter at the end, because even if this ends up being super quiet, you never really know what's going to happen. So you always see a limiter at the end. But let's go ahead and talk about the ring mod first. I'm not actually using this to do normal stuff. If you turn on the frequency all the way to the bottom and then you just barely adjust the mix, then you'll start to get kind of like a helicopter sound. So when you combine that a little bit together with all this other stuff, then you get a little bit more interesting kind of movement. Then we have some distortion because the sound is super quiet. This is just the typical factory setting. Then on this one, we've just got a high pass. And then we have a saturator at the end of this to kind of make everything a little bit brighter. Then finally, we've got some chorus just to spread everything out just a little bit more. With these settings, they're not really all that important, so I wouldn't try to copy the sound or the parameters exactly. If you know me, I always try to deter you from that because I want you to make your own shaker. I don't want you to make exactly what I made. But aside from that, it's also a good idea to explore and be like, well, how much is too much? How much is not enough? It's going to dictate or ultimately be like your choice and what you think sounds good to help you figure out what to do. So I guess for an example, if we had more chorus, you can hear that it sounds more flangey, which could be cool in a different case or a different genre or something, right? But that doesn't mean that it's wrong. So that's why, again, I wouldn't say like, hey, like try to make it exact. But anyways, again, in context, when we have everything together, it sounds like this. And what's cool is now that you have something like this, you can see that there's all these different little movement pieces here. You can just take one in specific instances, kind of like this, and break it up and create different aspects of rhythm. So you don't just have to like leave it going the whole time. And then it's cool because once you have all these different variations that you create for percussive patterns, then you can kind of let it build up and then go into a different beat. So yeah, that's what I got for you guys today. Again, if you guys enjoyed this video, then for one, I'd appreciate it if you guys could like it, but two, check out the masterclasses that I have both for the ARCANUM members and the website if you want to download it. They're pretty much exactly the same, although there are different recordings. The information is the same. It's just that one, I wanted to redo it and make it a little bit more concise and a little bit more friendly for if you were watching this from a downloaded video versus if you were watching this via subscription. So yeah, thank you guys so much. Happy holidays to you all, and I will see you in the next one.